Hello and welcome to Self Startups with Untitled Chapter. I'm going to be giving you tips for healthy marketing methods for the modern practitioner. This show is about how to grow your audience from scratch when you're just starting out in the health and wellness business. You might be a new therapist or a practitioner, and you might be newly qualified. You're looking for ways to reach out and build up a new customer base. My name's Annette Clubley and I'll be working in digital marketing for many years. I've worked with all sorts of businesses from tiny micro startups right up to multinational multi-million-dollar businesses, and I would love to help you along on your journey. Listen in for marketing tips and wonderful interviews with other people just like you who are starting out. Thanks for listening. Hello and welcome back to Self Startups. Today I'm going to be talking about thinking holistically about your marketing planning, and then a little bit later I'll be discussing personal power with my guest Naureen Khan. But first, what is thinking holistically about your marketing? In marketing there are plenty of people and ideas that will distract you. They'll encourage you to join a new social media platform or a Facebook group, saying you must be on Instagram, or you must start a YouTube channel, or I get all my customers by running rooms on Clubhouse. And of course you think, I must do this too if I'm going to be successful. Then there's all the people you admire who you want to emulate. For example, my favorite coach is on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and YouTube and Pinterest and. So you think to yourself, I must follow that person and their tactics, forgetting that they may be in a totally different place in their business journey. Sometimes you read about the latest technology or feature and decide you must have that. It's a sign of shiny object syndrome. Other times you get distracted by something that's fun and that you enjoy. It can be exciting to grow a huge following on TikTok overnight. Focusing on just one area of marketing puts the overall plan out of kilter, and the other areas suffer. Focusing on too many areas of marketing can lead you to burnout. You can stretch yourself thin financially, physically, or emotionally by trying to be all things to all people and do everything at once. I challenge you to reconsider your marketing. Think about your personality style, of course. Think about what you enjoy and where your audience spends time. I cover all of these in my program. But more importantly, think about your core business and make sure that all of your marketing works cohesively in support of your goals. The definition of holistic, according to Oxford Languages, is characterized by the belief that the parts of something are intimately interconnected and explicable only by reference to the whole. Everything in a holistic approach works towards the same outcome. All the parts are interconnected. This feeds into a multi-channel approach to marketing. If you are not clear about why you are doing what you are doing, this is the perfect time of year to review what you do. If you're not sure how your marketing channels are interconnected or what your customer journey is, you need to review your plan. Remove any extraneous or peripheral sidelines that aren't working for you. Stop rushing around trying to do everything. Don't start anything new until you are sure it fits in with the overall approach. Plan out how every aspect of your marketing hangs together and supports your aims and your customer's journey as they get to know you and then purchase from you. And then, of course, you need to take action. So next I'm going to be talking to Naureen Khan, who is a personal power coach and trainer, and we'll be talking about all things personal power and knowing your true self. Naureen is based in the UK like I am. It's a really fascinating and interesting discussion, and I hope that you enjoy it as much as I did. Okay, thank you very much, Naureen, for joining me today. I'm really interested in hearing what you've got to say because it sounds really fascinating in the couple of minutes that we've been talking just before this. So you are a personal power coach and trainer. Now, I don't know anybody who doesn't want to know more about, increasing their own power, basically. And I think there's a lot of bonus in finding out who you are and then working from your strengths and working in your zone, I think. And so I'm hoping that that's what you're going to be talking to us about, because I think That's really key. I think people need to be working in their own strengths and not sort of fighting that all the time. And to do that, they need to know who they are first. So we're going to be talking about personal power. And I am going to say, what is it? Is it what I've just said?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Annette. It's great to have this chat with you. Personal power really, to me, is knowing your true self, right? There is a phrase that I always use in a lot of my, my media, where I say, awaken to your true self and live the highest expression of who you are, right? So for me, personal power is really dropping into the heart space and living from the truth of who we are, as opposed to just living from our mind, which is very limited. It's a limited perspective of who we are. Right. So when we're living from our mind, we are creating limitations, we are living from belief systems that are not necessarily our truth, but it's all learned behavior over time. Things like conditioning, programming, things that we've been taught by the world, by, school, our parents, our friends, our family, and, all that kind of thing. But that's not who we really are. Right. So the reason I focus on personal power is once we begin to understand and go beyond all of that conditioning and programming, we get to a point of knowing who we really are. And when we begin to live from that space, really, there's a number of benefits, but the biggest benefit for me is the freedom, right? Okay. Freedom to be who you are and freedom to live how you want to live your life. Because when we're living from the mind, we are often playing small, or we're limiting ourselves in some way. And there's just so many things that happen in that sphere of the mind, which is not a negative thing as well. I just want to bring that in, because I know there's a lot of people that kind of have this impression that the mind and, the ego being part of the mind is a negative thing. Mm-hmm. But it's not really. In the work that I do, it's more about mastering the mind and bringing it into the wholeness of who we are, as opposed to the heart versus the mind. It's really bringing it all in. I specialize in energy and spiritual healing. So it's all about alignment of the mind, the body, and the breath. And, the way we describe the breath is spirit and the body, right? Which is that bigger essence of who we are. So a lot of my work is really focused on, what does it mean to have that personal power? What does it mean to live from it? And just to give people some examples who are not familiar with ways of where we may be giving our personal power away, it's things like when we say yes, when we really want to say no, right? When we're living from obligation, or there's expectations or there's judgments that we're living by. Where we silence ourselves, where we center ourselves. These are all kinds of ways where we're living in reality for somebody else, or in return for something else, right? That in return could be the need to be loved, or the need to feel wanted, or the need to feel appreciated or validated or approved. There's so many ways that we behave in where we're constantly giving our power away. Mm-hmm. Right. So really my work is to help people to identify where they're giving their power away, and then how they can take their power back. Okay. And a lot of that is using the energy and spiritual healing kind of tools and practices. And I really kind of mainly focus on a subconscious level, because a lot of us live from our conscious mind. Mm-hmm. But that's not really where our decisions are driven from, right? The conscious mind is where we say, yes, I want to do this. No, I don't want to do that. So we make the decisions from our conscious mind, but those decisions are ultimately driven from the subconscious mind because of the programming and the conditioning that we have. So a large part of what I do is very much focused at that subconscious level, which is the energy level, because that is the root cause of what's really going on. Right. Okay. So when we have things like an illness or difficulty in a relationship, or any kind of challenge or hardship, that's normally what I would refer to as a symptom. It's not really the root cause of what's causing that. Right. So the work that I do from a personal power perspective is, okay, well, where in your energy are you actually losing energy? Where are you giving that power away? Mm-hmm. And how do we then support you in bringing that power back? Right. So that's how I work at a subconscious level. But I'm really passionate about this because it's been part of my own journey. I've had a lot of learning about personal power. Mm-hmm. And as I mentioned, I've had endometriosis. And for me, it was all about why is personal power important? Because I've learned through the endometriosis that I was giving energy away constantly, right? So I was constantly depleted and giving from an empty cup. And really, the endo wasn't about the endo being an illness, but it was, what is it teaching me and what is it showing me? So in my own journey, as I began to delve deeper into it, I realized that there were so many things at play, and that I was really living outside of myself. And the endo was really a signal for my body to say, hey, come back within, right? And so as I started to understand that, as I started to come back, as I started to connect in, learn how energy works, learn how to take my power back, I suddenly started to have more energy. My pain reduced, my discomfort reduced. And I just started to feel a sense of myself. Along my journey, I had lost connection to myself, but I didn't realize that because I was so busy living out there, right? Working, hobbies, parents, family, there's so many things that we're constantly doing. And I think that the most important thing that I have learned in my journey is that when you allow yourself to be rather than do, it makes a significant impact on your own energy. Definitely. And that connects you into your personal power, right? And when you're strong in your personal power, you can then go out and be who you truly are. And as I mentioned at the beginning, that's the freedom that I think to some level we're all yearning for, because we no longer play small.
Yes. Do you find that people come to you when they've got to that physical stage, when they've got to that physical illness stage, they've kind of almost burnt out, or they're starting to get physical illnesses from the fact that they are constantly behaving in a way that's driven by those beliefs they've had all their life, or those expectations that they feel they've had all their life, and it all builds up, and eventually it starts to become physical, and there start to be physical symptoms, and that's when they suddenly go, well, I need to do something about it. But it's actually built up over your entire life, hasn't it?
It has. Yes. Yeah. I have worked with a few clients who do have physical illnesses. So there was I worked with somebody who had fibromyalgia. I had a couple of clients who I worked with on frozen shoulder and things like that as well. But I do also have clients who come to me a lot of the time who have relationship issues, right?
Okay.
A lot of us have relationship kind of conflicts, whether it's in family or with our partners or our children. So I work with people a lot in the relationship sphere as well, but it does usually mean that there is something going on in their system, whether it's some kind of a pain or whether it's migraines, or whether, there is always some kind of a symptom or some kind of a challenge that they're feeling that they actually want to work through. And the way that I see it, because I think a lot of us as well in the spiritual world talk about blockages, right? But the way that I perceive that in the way that I work, it's not a blockage. It's just basically, it's a circuitry issue, right? It's where there's not enough circuits in the system to be able to make those connections. So the whole reason of the energy work is to really to build those systems at the energetic level, so that the body has room for that energy to flow a bit more robustly and easily in the system. And it's not really a matter of looking at it as it's a blockage necessarily, because when we look at it as a blockage, then people often think I've got to overcome the block. And it's not about overcoming the block. It's about looking in and facing that energy where there isn't that circuitry, because when we shine our light into the darkness disappears and the light shines through, right? So it's a very, because I've used all the tools and practices that I've trained in the various modalities that I've trained in. So everything that I kind of share with my clients is based on my own personal experience. And having worked with, hundreds of sessions with clients, it's also the client's experience that I'm bringing to the table as well. But, a lot of it is really just, you've got to be willing and committed to yourself. And it takes a lot of courage to go there. So
it does to unpack things that you've been taught and then go, I'm going to be the person that I'm meant to be. I'm going to be myself, basically. It takes a lot of courage, doesn't it?
It does.
But ultimately, it's where you are meant to be.
Yes. And I think a lot of us forget that we have come here to live our life for our own experience. And the whole purpose of that is evolution and growth. And especially for me in my journey, what I realized was I wasn't living for me and I didn't know who I was. Right.
Yes.
So I've gone through my own journey of uncovering, well, who am I really? And what is the purpose of my life? And what is the meaning of my life?
Mm-hmm.
And as I have delved deeper and really found that a truly fascinating process, I am really just excited and passionate about helping people to say, hey, let's wake up, like, you know, let's wake up to the truth of who we are and let's really live who we are, because there's so much excitement and richness and fullness and depth and wholeness in all of that, you know, and the way that we perceive our life from the truth of who we are is completely different to when we're perceiving it as just the mind. So, you know, it's deep work. And I always say to my clients, those are the three things. You've got to have willingness to go there. You've got to have commitment to yourself, because this is about you. And you've got to have the courage, right? Because if you don't have the courage, it's very difficult to really open up on a deeper level. And my job really is to help create the space to allow the client to go into the subconscious and to really help people face things at a deeper level that they may not even know that they've got going on. Right. So it's a very safe and sacred space that just allows people to find themselves. Right. The other way that I like to describe this is I have found my light, like I'm a candle and my flame has been lit. And my job, the way that I see, is to help go and light other candles and help other people light their light, because together we shine together. This isn't just about me. This is about a togetherness for humanity. So it's very deep and personal work for me, just on the level of humanity, you know, and my mission really is to light as many candles as I can.
That's fabulous.
Because we rise together.
I love that analogy. That's absolutely fabulous, because I was just thinking to myself, I was going to ask you the question, do people not feel like it's too selfish to, you know, work on themselves and to live their lives for themselves? But then your candle analogy perfectly explains that, because actually when you have your candle lit and you are working in your zone and you are working as the person that you are meant to be, you contribute.
Absolutely.
And you actually often contribute in a much better way, in a much more meaningful way than you are when you spend your whole life doing what you think you should have been doing or what you think you were supposed to do. When you actually find out what you really are supposed to do, and that lights you up, you then are that much more enthusiastic, and you just do more, I think.
Yes.
And you contribute more because you are comfortable with who you are. And that then has a knock-on effect, doesn't it? You know,
it does, for sure. Yeah. And looking at it just from an energy perspective, just to answer your question in a slightly different way, is, you know, normally when we don't know who we are, we're constantly seeking outside of ourselves. And so our energy mostly is outside of ourselves. And when we're living from our mind, our energy is not actually in our physical body, right? So from an energetic perspective, when we take care of ourselves, it's really big about self-care, because a lot of us do feel selfish and guilty for putting ourselves first, because that's just how we've grown up. Right. But the whole importance of self-care is that when we fill ourselves up, when we maintain our energy, it naturally overflows to other people. We don't have to work at it. Right. And so it means that when we're giving from a full cup, we don't feel things like resentment, right? That someone's asked us to do something and I feel obligated to do it. It's I can naturally give because it's overflowing from me. But it means I'm taking care of me first. It's similar to the airplane kind of analogy, right? With the mask, it's put your mask on first before you put on another's, because you're no good to anybody else if you're not filled with energy and love and light and the truth of who you are.
No, you're
right.
Not.
So the energy piece is really important. And just to highlight to people who may not be familiar with this, is with the energy work, what I love to say, and the way I explain this to others, is when we're doing this work for ourselves, we're doing it for everybody, because energetically we're all one. And so when I begin to allow myself the freedom to be who I am, I'm opening a space in the collective consciousness for everybody else to find out who they are, because I'm opening that energy space collectively. So I'm doing it for me,
Yeah.
I'm doing it for the collective, and I'm doing it for my ancestors as well, because it's their energy that's working through me, that's also clearing when I go deep. So, this work is really precious because it's not just about us doing it for us. It's got the benefits of the collective and the ancestral healing. So it's really powerful.
Yes. Very interesting. Wow. That's very interesting. Yeah. I was reading recently where a physicist was saying, he was talking about the fact that energy is in what's the word, inextinguishable.
Yes.
So it just regenerates, it just takes different forms, and it literally cannot be finished. It can, it doesn't dissipate in the way that we think it does. And I thought that was really fascinating. So yeah.
And that's why I use the word transform whenever I speak about it, is because we're not trying to create new energy and we're not trying to get rid of any energy. We're transforming what's already there, right? Okay. So as I say, we bring the light into the darkness and that takes over. That's the transformation process. And really the purpose of the energy work, again, just to help people to understand, is that there is a bigger part of us, which is the truth of who we are. And our job, really, our purpose, is to embody and ground that, right? So in the physical body and in our energy bodies, if we're holding things like trauma and pain and unprocessed, unresolved things and emotions, it creates pockets and our energy becomes fragmented. So we feel like we're not complete, or we feel like there's something missing. And so we go outside of ourselves and we're seeking things outside. But really, the process of working with clients and going deep is that when we can start melting away and start integrating those pockets of energy, we suddenly start to feel whole again. We start to feel complete again. We start to feel energized again. And when we do that, we anchor in more of our own light and we're able to ground it. So that's really, just looking at it from a different perspective again, is the importance of the work that we do, because the more we ground into who we are and anchor it, the more we live from our truth, the more comfortable and confident we become, the more clarity that we have of who we really are. So it's really, it's on a physical level. My work really focuses on embodiment. So I don't focus as much on the mindset level. I know there's a lot of people out there who work on mindset. Yes. For me, it's more, the mindset is the awareness. It's the beginning of the process, but it's not the entire process, right? The entire process is really integrating that energy at a physical level so that we can feel that wholeness, that completeness of who we really are. The mindset is that conscious level, because you've still got that conscious operation level that's going on above everything else. And if you can get past that and deal with all of the underlying, as you say, energy, beliefs, all of that clutter, and bring it together and go, yes, I know, who I am. I know what my purpose is. I know what I'm doing. And then you can almost inform the mind, can't you, to then work on your behalf. So, because it's super powerful. Okay, really interesting. So does the process take a long time? Do people have to do a series of sessions with you? Or how quick is it? Is the question that springs to mind immediately. Or does it depend on the person? It really depends on what the person is going through, and it really depends on what's happening for them. It's kind of like a question of how long is a piece of string. I've been on the journey for a number of years because I've had so much going on, and really every part of my life has changed, right? I started one process and then other things started to change, because energy is holistic, right? So if you start with health, other things might start coming in. Your relationships might change, your money situation might change, because wherever there are the gaps or the void in your energy that we bring light to suddenly start to fill up. So it really depends on the individual and what they're going through. But the guidance that I give to clients is usually drop into your heart space and feel into what is it that you feel that you want to work on. And then how long do you feel that you want to work on that? Because I'm there to support clients through that journey. I'm not there to say to clients, you have to book a package, or you have to do 3 or 6 or 9 or 12 sessions. It really unfolds over time, because it's a very authentic process. It's not something that I I specify in any particular way.
No, and that's quite nice in a way, because it makes them feel like they're making the decision, they're making the commitment, and they're kind of that, they have to drive the process, I would imagine, because if they're not prepared to put the work in and they're not prepared to look at themselves very truthfully, then they're not going to make the progress.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And there's very little that I can do in that process, because really my job is, as I say, to bring in the light, but the work has to be done by the client, right? The work has to be done by the other person. And so they've got to be the one who has to drive that process. But the other reason I work that way is because it's them taking their personal power back, right? It's not waiting for somebody else to say, do it this way, or this many sessions is what you need, or it's giving the client the power back to say, okay, this is in your hands, this is your opportunity now, in beginning to work with me, learning to take your power back right from the outset. Right.
Okay.
So
I was going to say in control, but then I thought, no, better not.
So it's really an opportunity from the get-go for the client to really step into their power and say, okay. And that may be nerve-wracking for a lot of people, because we're not used to somebody saying to us, okay, you make all the decisions.
Yes.
Right. The way a lot of us tend to live our lives is, well, let me look at what's outside of me. What am I going to get from that? And then we negotiate the way that we live and the way that, we do things in our life. But this is very much about taking that power from the very beginning. And it's uncomfortable for a lot of people to begin with. But as we go through the sessions, they become stronger in that, and they begin to realize, actually, this is really good for me. Right. It's an avenue, it's a safe space for them to be able to work around that and see whatever fears come up for them in that process as well, because that in itself is a huge thing. Right. In making decisions for yourself, in trusting those decisions, in saying yes to yourself is really difficult for many people, because it's not a culture we've grown up in.
Exactly. And as you unpack stuff, you then might discover that there's something else that you want to explore as well. So who knows, really, when you're starting out that journey, how long it's going to take, or what you might uncover while you're along the way.
Yeah. Okay. And it's very flexible, it's very, and in the beginning stages, I normally recommend like a week between sessions, depending on what's going on. But really it's in the client's hand to say, okay, I think 2 weeks, or I think 3 weeks. I'm there to provide guidance, but I'm not there to say, do this, do that, do it this way. It's really supporting the client every step of the way. Because that personal power piece for me is key.
And it depends on how busy they are and what they can fit into their schedule and all of that kind of thing, especially if they've got young children or something like that. They may not have the privilege of being able to take the time out that frequently. Okay, very interesting. Right. Well, so tell me, how do I find you? And how do I contact you? So how would I start the process off, should I decide that I would want to work with you?
Well, you can have a look at my website. So it's naurenkhan.co.uk. So naureenkhan.co.uk. There's a few bits on there. You can have a look at the homepage. There's a video of how I work. You can read a little bit about me and my own journey. And then there is a work with me page. So on there are the various different options of being able to work with me. I have group sessions for those who would like more than just one session. But really, clients can contact me through the discovery call. We can have a free chat, see what it's all about. They get the opportunity to ask questions. And then they can either just have a one-off session, or they can have a package of 3 or 6, or, whatever we decide might feel best for them. So my website is really the best way to contact me. And just to throw in there to let you know is that for those people who are not familiar with working with energy, I do offer free energy transmissions that are live every week. Again, that information is on my website on the homepage. It's through Facebook, and I've started on YouTube as well. It's a free service. It's 30 minutes on Mondays every day, every week. And people can just join in, it'll help them to connect into the truth of who they are. And that is probably a really good place to start as well.
I think that really helps sometimes when you're just, it just kind of reassures you that you think, yes, this is something that I'm comfortable with doing or not, basically, or this is somebody that I think I can work with or not. It's, it builds up that getting to know you a little
Absolutely.
bit. And the same thing with the discovery call. I mean, a discovery call can be as good if you because it's that opportunity to ask questions about, how does this work?
Yes.
So that you can reassure yourself before you start, I think. And I think that's really important. I think there's very few people that will just click a button,
Yes, exactly.
People want to meet you and they want to get to know you basically before they purchase normally, or before they book a series normally. Okay, all right, super. Well, thank you very, very much for taking the time out of your day to talk to me today. It's really interesting. I'm actually going to go off and have a look at your website myself.
That's great, and thank you for the chat. It's interesting, and I love what I do. I love to talk about it. So
you could see it in your face. You can see it in your face straight away. You're very, your face lights up when you talk about it, and I think that is, for me, that's a real sign that someone has found themselves and what they are meant to be doing, and they're comfortable with what they're doing, and they're comfortable with who they are and how they work with people. Is that it shows up in that enthusiasm, I think. So
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for taking the time, and I'll add web addresses and all that sort of thing to the post so that people can just click through and find out a little bit more about you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
You made it to the end of the episode. Thanks for listening to Self Startups Today. Don't forget you can find more episodes at my website www.annetteklubbley.com, and you can find information about my free trainings and my programs at /learn. Look forward to seeing you there.